On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, the Ronin 10mm, Who Pays, the Saturday Night Special Plan, and Mike Tyson's fake penis. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Danny, Marky, and Freeze, and this is episode 193 of the John1911 Podcast. And I want the listeners at home to know we are all sitting here, all three of us, with sour grapes, complaining about how our governors suck, and the rest of you that live in free America, not trapped behind enemy lines, don't have to deal with curfews and closures and whatever, because the governor of Illinois has shut Danny down, and the governor of Ohio has shut us down. Is that right? Do I have that about right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. I haven't
on point.
Yeah, I haven't heard all the fine details to what the governor of Ohio is going to do yet. But I'm sure within the next 24 to 48 hours, I'll know everything.
Yeah, I think you're off this week. The governor announced yesterday, governor of Ohio, John Kasich. Might as well be John Kasich.
Same difference.
What's his name? I can't even stand the guy.
DeWine.
Mike DeWine. Mike DeWine, whose daughter tried to secretly run an anti-gun political action committee out of her house in Greene County and got caught by a pro-gun grassroots advocacy group in Ohio. That same Mike DeWine, GOP governor guy, right? He has announced a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew in the state of Ohio for the next 3 weeks, because I guess he wants to flatten the curve. Or I don't know what it is. Maybe it stopped the recount. I don't know what these people are thinking anymore half the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been hearing all kinds of crazy shit. Like for Thanksgiving, you can't have more than like 6 people over. But like in a protest, you can have like 50 people, but no more than 50, or some crap like that. So I heard someone say, well, then just print up a sign protesting turkey, and you could have 50 people to your house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, we're just we are into the full blown we're back into the silliness. I mean, I don't really have any contact with hospitals anymore. Freeze, is your wife heard? Because she's retired from a hospital, but I mean, is there hospitals being swamped?
Okay, so here's the thing. I've heard second or third hand from several people that, oh yeah, the ERs are swamped, the hospitals are swamped, standing room only. But here's the thing. I haven't heard it firsthand from any reliable source, and I tend to not believe it. Not saying that there's not a lot of people in the hospitals. I'm just saying, unless I hear it firsthand from a reliable source, I'm not going to necessarily take it, as gospel truth that someone says, well, my dad's friend's, an ER doctor, and he said, the place is swamped. Yeah, whatever. I'm hearing that. It's like I haven't heard any reliable firsthand sources on that yet.
Yeah, it's a lot like 9/11 on all the stories you keep hearing, like all the different planes that had crashed all around the country. You're like, oh, a buddy of mine, a girlfriend of mine in Texas said there's a plane on the tarmac on the airport in Dallas, and the SWAT team has they have the airplanes surrounded. That never happened. I mean, there are a lot of these like my buddy, my friend kind of things. It's like, yeah, I don't know. So, but also just to put a little highlight on Ohio and actually how out of control it is here, because they give a lot of airtime to Gavin Newsom getting caught going out to dinner, and all this kind of stuff in California. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
I heard it.
But so like right after the election, all these pharmaceutical companies started to magically announce that they had vaccines, and Danny has some insight into that. We've never actually talked about it.
Are you away from your mic? You sound like you're talking in a soup can.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Did you get a? He's dry firing.
I am not. You know what it is? Let me check something here. Let me.
Now you sound a lot better.
Yeah, now you're back.
Okay, you know what it is? I leaned back from the computer. Apparently, my computer is recording, not my headphones. So I apologize to the listener. I have to keep the computer up close to my face. Apparently, we just discovered an audio problem that we didn't even know we had. So, but to get back to Ohio, the everyone has to lock down. Everybody can do this. There all this kind of stuff. Now there's vaccines. How old is Senator Rob Portman, the second senator from Ohio? Does anybody know? I mean, I'm guessing late 60s, early 70s.
I don't know his age, but he's got to be late 60s.
Yeah, he's got to be in his late 60s. So this is an example of the news reporting something that it's not really the truth. It's a way to cover the truth. And I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, but whenever you read the news, you need to read it twice. You got to read what is it saying, and then you got to read who's saying it. So here's the thing. They've announced that there's vaccines and there's treatments for this stuff, for this COVID commie cough thing, right? And some of them are 90% effective. Now there's some that are 95% effective. I mean, these are done deals. They just have to be widely used. So there's a story this week. Ohio Senator Rob Portman has enrolled in a so-and-so vaccine trial. And it's like, oh, really? So 60, 70-year-old senator from Ohio. We happen to have we have such a small margin in the GOP Senate that we can risk a senator for a vaccine trial. Like, this is not a vaccine trial. What this is Senator Rob Portman is getting the vaccine, and in this quote trial, I guarantee you he will not get the placebo, the sugar shot, and he'll get the real vaccine. But the rest of us, we have to sit and lock down in Ohio. And this is an example of a headline that's run in the news and nobody notices it. And it's like, this is bullshit.
Well, a lot of the things they're not telling you about these vaccines is like the Pfizer vaccine that's coming out. Until it's constituted in its injectable form, it's got to be stored at 98 degrees below zero. And that's not bullshit. And the problem is, you have to get the hospitals or the pharmacies or whoever are going to be the people to distribute the vaccine. They have to have the freezer capacity because no one's got freezers that go that cold. And now with the Pfizer drug, once you constitute it, it's good for unconstituted, you can put it in dry ice for like 7 or 10 days, and then constituted, it's good for like 72 hours. So all you need is like one hub to distribute it to other places. So, but the thing is, it's getting everything set up to inoculate the masses, so to speak.
And there are multiple. I have heard the 98 degrees below zero, which is astoundingly cold. Now, one of the other vaccines from one of the other companies, I believe it's in the 30s, which is a lot easier to apparently for these places to store. Another one of the vaccines is in like the minus 30, 32 or minus 30 or minus 28 or something.
That's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference, and that'll be that. It's stuff like that doesn't make the news, but it's stuff like that'll probably make the difference as far as which vaccine gets distributed more widely and which vaccine gets used or paid for, or becomes the one that everybody takes. Like, it could be a perfect example where the 98 degree below zero one might be, again, I don't know this, but like the 98 degree below zero one might be 95% effective. The 30 degree below zero one might be 90% effective, but it's like, you know what?
we have no way of getting this thing out to everybody that cold. So most people, unless they're near a quote hub that you described, are going to get to 30 below 0.1. So yeah, that's called real world.
Yeah.
That's logistics.
Well, I think the part also how you say you have to read it and read it twice. Name me one major news network, paper, or anything that have mentioned how all this research and the development of the vaccine was actually done with federal grant dollars. But yet these pharmaceutical companies are the ones, getting all the accolades for it. But all the money and testing, where did it come from?
My understanding is, the National Institute of Health did not make these vaccines. These were made by private companies. There was money, and there was, whatever, different people did different things to have a salubrious effect on the processes, but none of these are government owned or government actually really responsible for making any of these things.
Oh, I agree with that, but I'm saying, did they not get research money from the government to do this?
I'm sure they did, but I don't understand what your point is.
My point is that the pharmaceutical companies are going to make billions, and if it was funded by taxpayer dollars, it makes you wonder: are all these going to be free? The vaccines.
Well, they've actually, no, it's not going to be free, but I think politically it's already been floated as a trial balloon that these vaccines will be given to the population for free. They'll be paid for because apparently this stuff costs money, but I believe that nobody's going to, right now at least, have to pay for them because it's a national emergency. But it doesn't mean that the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to make money because they lose. Like for example, the 95 below 0 vaccine freeze. Like, I'm not a pharmacist or a pharmaceutical person, but like, what if that company spent, I don't know, like what if they spent $5 billion making that damn thing?
Okay, well, you also have to, Danny, you also have to look at this. Okay, so you got a pharmacy that has to invest in a freezer, or I'm simplifying this by saying a pharmacy.
Correct.
Has to invest in a freezer that goes to 100 degrees below 0. Who knows how many thousands of dollars that costs? Then you have to pay for a pharmacist and techs to work the vaccine and distribute the vaccine, and they're not going to do that for free. The pharmacy needs to make money.
Yeah.
Now, it may not be a lot of money, whether it goes through insurance or whether it gets claimed through like through a Medicare or a Medicaid type program. But someone's, you can't expect hospitals and pharmacies to work for free either.
Well, let me just give it a more relative example to Danny, just so he understands, to make it perfectly crystal clear. Danny has a doctor. If Danny goes to his doctor and gets the, quote, government vaccine, that doctor, for that visit when Danny's there, is still getting paid. He's billable hours. The receptionist is still billable hours. The doctor's visit is still billable hours. It's all paid for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the point I'm trying to make is that if these big farms got federal dollars for research, fine. The federal dollars they have were our tax dollars. But these big farms are also going to make billions on this from one end to the other, with initially having our dollars to do it.
It's called capitalism, Danny.
Well, hold on. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Now, you guys are both going off the rails here. It's not that simple, okay? So the 95-degree vaccine that we've been talking about, like I can't believe this has turned into the vaccine podcast, the John1911, but the 95-degree vaccine, Danny, for all we know, this company, okay, whoever made this, was it Pfizer freeze? Did you say
Pfizer?
Just for example, Pfizer. So here's okay. So think about this. This is like Pearl Harbor, okay? Like all of a sudden, the federal government, they used the National Defense Appropriations Act or whatever it is, and they come into these private companies and they go, it's freaking World War II, son of a bitch. I don't care what you guys are doing right now, but we're about to lose half the population of this country. Stop making all your other drugs. Basically, I want every inch of capacity that you can possibly give up doing other stuff, and I want you to focus on this. Here's a big check, and you're going to do what we say, and you're going to figure it out. And here's what happened. The 95-degree vaccine, let's say it works, but here's the thing. There may have been 100 other vaccines that Pfizer has made that didn't work or wasn't viable. The 10-degree vaccine didn't work. The 15 below zero vaccine didn't work. The 18 below zero vaccine didn't work. And maybe they're like, well, dude, we can't get below 30 degrees below zero because we don't have the infrastructure. They fought and fought. The 28-degree below zero vaccine didn't work. They fought, then they got the 30. The 30 below zero vaccine doesn't work. They're like, shit. So now they're fighting with vaccines, theoretically. The 35 below zero vaccine doesn't work. The 40 below zero. I mean, how many vaccines, how much effort, how much bandwidth have these companies put into doing this stuff for all the failures, all the mistakes, and all the other things they didn't do? Because here's the thing. You cannot come into a private company that has stockholders, that has infrastructure they have to pay for every day. Like some guy that has a PhD in chemistry, that dude makes a pretty penny. And you know, whether he's working on a vaccine for the COVID-19 or whether he's working to figure out how to give guys 12-inch dicks, he's getting paid every day. And you take all these people, all these facilities that on all this overhead, this nut that they have to cover, and you tell that private company, do something else. I mean, you have to make it worthwhile for them. And you also have to make it financially viable. They cannot shut all their businesses down just to make to lose all the money on the research, to lose all the money on the overhead, to lose all that time of not making money doing other stuff just to okay, all right, I guess we'll declare bankruptcy now. It's been 10 months, but we haven't made any money because we've been working on this. So I guess you all get a vaccine, but the National Institutes of Health is going to have to make it because we can't because we're out of business. Oh, that's right. Johnson & Johnson and private companies are the only companies in America that actually have enough infrastructure to mass produce these vaccines. If you want the government to do it, they got a little lab at USAMRIID to make something special, but they can't make 360 million shots.
Good point. Very good point. So they in other words, they will recoup their losses or investments.
They have to. And here's the thing. Money is like water in a sink. Okay? And let's say you look at a sink full of water and you're like, I don't know, let's say, it's stopped up and you close the plunger and it's drip in, trying to build up the wealth, build it up. Dude, once you open that drain and not adding, because there's seepage and there's overhead and there's evaporation, but once that drain starts to crack open, that money just runs down that drain so fast. A lot of people that don't understand finance do not appreciate how quickly people and businesses run out of money. You can have they're a $100 billion business. It's well, you know what? But they take $80 billion to frickin' stay open. Yeah, I mean, it's people just don't understand. I mean, Freeze, didn't you tell me years ago, you have to make at least a 38% profit just to break even in life?
It's a 33 to 35% profit margin just to keep the lights on.
In standard retail, in standard business, commercial business.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't make a 33 to 35% profit margin across the board, you're out of business. You can't cover your monthly nut. And that's not even making profit at that point. That's covering your nut.
Wow. I did not know that.
And here's a lot of people don't this is interesting because this is the season. Okay, Black Friday's Black Friday for a reason. Danny, do you know why Black Friday is there?
Why do they call it Black Friday?
Friday. Okay, I'll tell you. Because from January to January, you have a fiscal year, and not all companies have their fiscal year starts on January 1st. It varies. But Black Friday is the official day, and this varies from business to business, to where actually from the point of Black Friday on, the company's actually in the black for the year. It takes them all. It takes them all the way up to there before they actually really start rolling in the dough. That's why it's called Black Friday, and a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't even think about it. They just think of it as, wow, Black Friday, it's a big sale day before Thanksgiving. No, Black Friday is the day where businesses actually start to make a profit for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to be interesting in Illinois because the governor his new order says only 25% capacity in big box and retail stores. So Black Friday, I don't think you're going to be seeing the lines lining up at 2 a.m. anymore.
Oh,
Okay.
they can't. Restaurants, they can't. They're like restaurants and big box retailers a lot of overhead. But let me give another example here. So, Danny, you go into downtown Chicago, all right, and you look at.
Go ahead.
you. I know, but you load up. You bring 2 guns. You're dual wielding. You're dual wielding the Deagles, and you go to downtown Chicago, and you look at the fancy hotels, like the
Drake.
Yes, exactly. The Drake or whatever. Now, maybe the Drake is a little bit of an exception because it's this historically significant hotel. But here's the thing. Most hotels in the United States are about 30 to 45 days from running out of money. Just normal. It costs. It's a hell of a crappy business. I mean, like they have to have all this, whether somebody rents a room or doesn't rent a room. That building is there, the property taxes are there, the utilities are being paid, like all the support staff to run all that, the support staff to keep everything going. That's constantly being eaten up. And most hotels, the rule of thumb was, you take the fanciest hotel you can imagine, and you basically say, yeah, we're going to make sure you're closing for 45 days because we're shutting off your water because we got to do a water main. They're gone. They're just running out of money. They're gone. They're out of business. Like they have no money.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. Oh, speaking about shutdowns, your governor, my governor, whatever, as per my job description,
your friend and mine, Mike DeWine.
Yeah, no, my story's a little better. Per my job description, I'm paid to watch all these news channels so I could do the report.
Paid handsomely, I will tell the listener whether that's true or not.
We won't go there. But anyway, as I was channel surfing last night, guess who was a guest commentator on CNN? Kasich.
Oh, John. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
The chances that John Kasich will end up serving in a Biden administration are extraordinarily high.
I actually heard that he was being considered for a post.
Well, typically what you'll do is now, it depends. If you're president and you want to have a bipartisan, throw the other side a bone, job, okay, what you do is, like, that person can become HHS secretary, or that person can become the Secretary of Transportation, or maybe you make them the Secretary of Labor, depending on your political party. Sometimes Democratic presidents will choose a pseudo-rhino-y, but someone who has some credibility on the defense, national security front to be their Secretary of Defense. For example, Obama did that with was it Gates, Bill Gates, or Robert Gates, his Secretary of he kept on Gates from Bush, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
remember.
Robert Gates. white-haired guy. He's now a chancellor at a college down in Texas. He's a Republican. But, people like, who is this Obama guy? What experience does he have? People were kind of worried. That's why they chose Joe Biden, because Joe Biden supposedly is this big foreign policy guy. That's why they made him as vice president. So my point is, you see the overtones from CNN, you see the overtones from the mainstream media, and from the certain talking heads in the Democratic Party. I want to be the president of everybody. We're gonna get back to normal. And John Kasich is right up. John Kasich will get a check. John Kasich will get a job because he's been a good boy. He's not supported Trump. He's a son of a bitch, and he will gladly walk around on all fours in some little corner office in some dirt-billy building, outside of Washington, so he can stay in government because he has no future political prospects. Yeah, John Kasich's getting a job.
It would be funny if the Republicans keep the Senate and don't confirm them.
The Republicans don't generally do that, but it's interesting. It's fun how quickly we forget. Suddenly the Democrats are all hooting and hollering about the transition, right? Like, it's just interesting, the succession of power and making everything dangerous. I seem to recall there were senatorial confirmations for cabinet positions under the Trump administration that weren't filled for 18 months?
Yeah, and the Republicans control the Senate. That's the part I'll never get.
Filibuster. You have to you had cloture, and you have to have a 60.
Oh, that's right.
It's not a simple majority vote. The Senate traditionally, that's some of the drama that's been going on with, what started with Harry Reid, and now we have Mitch McConnell, because Harry Reid did some stuff, and then Mitch McConnell warned them, and now it's like, okay, well, now we can do this. And so then that was called the nuclear option, and now they want to talk about, quote, the new thing is the Democrats, they screwed that all up with Harry Reid in the Senate. And then it's always interesting. The Democrats never want to look at their own history. Harry Reid did this. He did all this. Harry Reid really, really did a lot of damage to the Senate as an institution. And so now they have to, the bills come due, and now the Republicans are in power. So now the Democrats, their position is, hey, you know what? Let's not compromise. Let's maybe bring back the filibuster for even judges. Let's try to get back to a senatorial normalcy that we always had. The Democrats are like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do simple majority and get rid of the filibuster altogether for everything in the Senate. And it's like, all right. I mean, it's like, okay. It's like, but somehow Trump is a threat to institutions in this country. I mean, that's why no one watches Fox News anymore. People can't stand to be lied to.
I actually heard, and I saw a blurb. I didn't dive into the article, and this shocked me. What's the Fox News morning program?
Fox and Friends.
I heard the other day that Morning Joe actually beat Fox and Friends in the ratings.
I heard that too.
And honestly, that shocks me because, I mean, that tells you a lot about where Fox viewers are right now.
Yeah, because, Morning Joe did not really, I mean, if they made slightly, didn't really increase viewership. It's just that Fox News viewership has declined. Now,
exactly.
Look, again, I just got done hammering on Democrats for not looking at their own history. And, Republicans and conservatives and Fox News viewers and people, they are guilty of the same thing. Here's a perfect example. When Barack Obama was first elected president in 2008, Fox News viewership went in the toilet because people were like, really? And, they felt like, well, no offense, but sometimes you get Sean Hannity on television, and Sean Hannity will say things because he's a cheerleader. He's not reporting the news, but Sean Hannity's claim is, he says he's an opinion journalist. He's not a news journalist. But you get enough people cheerleading, and you start switching on these news channels, and it almost becomes dopamine to make you feel better about your side. You really want to watch or listen or hear good news. But if that isn't reflected in the reality of what's going to happen, you feel betrayed. And Fox News went through a huge slump in 2008. And guess what happened? I mean, they went back because people can't leave Fox News now. They had to have been there after 2008.
Oh, I mean, I haven't watched a Fox News program in years. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch cable news.
Well, I have a question for both of you guys. Let's get out of the mainstream media rhetoric, and let's say there's 30 some days left or whatever of the Trump presidency or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
January 20th.
Okay, here's my question. When all the court cases and everything, whatever it is, be it goes to SCOTUS or whatever, let's just say everything's done and Biden is declared the winner. Will Trump do a slew of pardons, number one? The last week, will he step down? Pence has to be sworn in, and Pence pardon Trump from any and everything.
No. I don't believe that'll happen.
What, the first or the latter?
As far as Trump pardoning people, I'm sure he will. All presidents do. How many or who gets it, I don't know. Don't really care. As far as the whole Trump's going to stand down and Pence assumes the presidency for 3 days and Pence pardons Trump, I don't buy that. I don't think that'll happen.
Gerald Ford Nixon?
Totally different scenario.
Let me ask this question, and just to let it hang. Why did Gerald Ford pardon Nixon? Do you know the answer?
I feel this is kind of a trick question.
It could be. No, he pardoned him for the things. So that's not like he pardoned him for dropping stealing ice cream cone from little Susie. He pardoned him for the pardon. That's not the trick question. But you know why? It actually has everything to do with why Hillary Clinton is never going to jail, and why Eric Holder is never going to jail, and why Donald Trump is never going to jail.
Why?
It actually has a lot to do with Vladimir Putin trying to give himself in Russia, coincidentally enough, lifetime immunity. Here's the thing: in politics in the United States, and it's not unique to the United States, we have a couple unwritten rules. These things they're not set in statute, but they're set in the way we do things. And so, for example, what we don't do as a country. And Gerald Ford, he's going to take a lot of heat for this. But he's like, look, we've been through all of this nightmare bullshit with Nixon. All this stuff with, the Watergate break-in, and then the slow leak of all the stories, and then the research, and then the Pentagon Papers, and just all this crazy crap that just was going on and on and on. It went on for years. And Nixon, I'm not crooked, I'm not this, and blah, 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 blah. And, and Ford is just like, we just need to move forward in life. We just have to move forward in the country. It doesn't do us any good to spend the next 4 or 8 years hammering on Nixon. He's done. It's over. He's guilty. He's been caught. Write the dude a pardon and just go away, and let's get to the business of dealing with America. Okay? But there's another built-in thing into this. When you run for president, you're done, you're retired. You become president emeritus. You become politician emeritus. we as a country make it a point to not go after our, quote, political enemies when we are in power. We don't go after our political enemies when we're in power to get payback for when they were in power. People get to retire and they get to be out of politics. People get to leave office and they get to be private citizens. Now, there's a special circumstance with Trump, with Danny's theory, that we have to take into account that's never happened before. It has happened once before, but we don't, in modern politics, it hasn't happened. When Jimmy Carter lost re-election, Jimmy Carter was not thinking he was going to run in 1984. When George Herbert Walker Bush lost in 1992, he did not think he was going to run in 1996. Yes, Donald Trump can issue all these pardons. But he also, if he truly, it'll be interesting, if he truly thinks he's going to run again, or he wants the option to run again, he is not going to do pardons that would hurt him on re-election. For example, Bill Clinton, on the last days in office, he signed a pardon for Mark Rich, and Denise Rich was the big political donor, and she basically, there was even rumors that maybe she was having sex with Bill Clinton, and Mark Rich was guilty of tax evasion or some kind of tax stuff, and he wrote a pardon, and there was no reason for him to get the pardon. Like, there was no mitigating circumstances like, oh, he's been helping, works with little kids and, helps runaway children, or, he's now a minister. It was purely a political connection, money play. If Bill Clinton theoretically was looking to get reelected 4 years later to office, there's no way in hell he writes that pardon for Mark Rich. No way. And there's going to be some things that Trump just, there's just no way he's gonna get pardons for, or if he does, it's a sign he's probably not going to run for re-election.
You don't think Flynn should be pardoned?
Flynn will be pardoned. I didn't say that. Flynn, there's no downside. There's no downside to Mike Flynn getting a pardon politically for Donald Trump.
No, I see what you're saying, and I don't.
As a matter of fact, you could make the argument if Trump doesn't give a pardon to General Mike Flynn, Donald Trump basically threw Flynn under the bus and left the man behind. And you know what? We don't leave men behind.
I think Roger Stone will get a full pardon too.
That would be one. Here's the thing. I would be on the bubble with that one if Trump and Roger Stone weren't actually good personal friends, and I believe they are good personal friends. And one thing Roger Stone has done, and Trump likes this, and nobody can dispute it. When they had Roger Stone's balls in a frickin' vice, Stone was like, "I ain't talking," and I think Trump likes that. Now, Roger Stone. Okay, so I think there's a chance he probably does give Roger Stone a pardon. I think the political ramifications that are unknown right now for me. Roger Stone also was kind of guilty of some stuff, and in all fairness, also, Roger Stone did try to do some stuff with, quote, Roger Stone thought maybe he was trying to communicate with WikiLeaks, or thought maybe he was trying to communicate with Russians somehow. He wasn't, but he actually had the intention to. And when you put that with the reality, is Roger Stone is a weird dude. And he has a long and sordid history of major dirty tricks politically, going back to the Nixon administration. Roger Stone is one of the original political dirty tricksters. Like digging on dirt on people and bringing, like, Roger Stone within the Washington Beltway, or within the political people, the permanent, the pretty people in Washington that always manage to stay in power, even when they're not in power, they're making money. Roger Stone's not their buddy, and they all would love to cut his balls off because he's got a lot of enemies.
Well, I can tell you one person who will not get a presidential pardon.
Who's that?
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, that's true. But there's a theory. Actually, this theory was floated by I don't want to say who they are because I don't really know anything about them. But it was a good theory. That's where I heard it. So the theory was, if Trump wants to run for re-election, and if Trump wants to set the narrative, and Trump really likes to set the narrative, he should give pardons. He should give pardons to, hear me out, don't go ballistic. He should give pardons to Comey, Strzok, Page, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and a couple of the other people, the FBI, the DNI clapper, and I guess maybe somebody else. And the argument is, if he issues a pardon to those people, number one, they're never going to jail anyway, for what I just said. Like, they're just not. They're not going to be prosecuted. They're not going to go to jail. But if Trump issues a pardon, it becomes permanent record that they committed crimes against this country that could be treason, and Trump had to pardon them. And that will be his story that he tells. And if he does that, he's running.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. I don't necessarily know if I buy into it, but I like the theory. I really do.
I do too.
I mean,
Mark, you call me the conspiracy theorist.
Hey, baby, that wasn't my theory. That was from an activist think tank, political activist think tank that's popped up in the past few months.
Plagiarism.
But let's talk a second about Trump running in 2024. Okay, I have two lines of thought on this. One, I think it would be very difficult for him to run in 2024. However, with that being said, he still got, 73 million votes this election. And Biden and Harris have a 4-year run to really screw things up in this country, which could really make it, it could make it really ripe for Donald Trump to jump back into the presidency. But losing this election the way he did, and would it be wise to come back in 4 years and try to run?
It has happened once before in American history. I believe was Polk had two separate terms, possibly? Was it Polk?
FDR had two separate terms.
No. FDR
had didn't Teddy Roosevelt come back a second time?
He tried to. He didn't win. Okay. Roosevelt's were consecutive, but there's one president who actually had non-consecutive terms. Like, he ended up being like the 25th and the 27th president. Like, I mean, I think it might have been Polk. I could be wrong on that one. But there is one president who's had 2 terms as president that were not consecutive, were not back to back. And so it could happen. But let's talk about norms. Let's talk about some of what we just talked into. If we're going to talk about Trump in 2024, you have to talk about Trump January 21st, 2021, which is the day after he's out of office.
Yeah.
Traditionally speaking, presidents who are no longer in office, they kind of go into the wilderness. They've had 4 or 8 years of just being in the media, and they would like some time alone. And also, it's understood that they give the incoming president a chance to, do his or her own thing, to, make their own decisions and let them be responsible for their own presidency, just like how a previous president supposedly did it for the outgoing president. There is no way Trump walks in the wilderness on January 21st, 2021. There is no way.
Oh, hell no. He'll be opening his own TV station.
Now, the rumor is he wants to buy Newsmax.
You know what? I like Newsmax, and I would love to see Trump buy Newsmax. I really would.
Well, we're forgetting another thing, too, as of January 21st. maybe the feds or maybe the incoming administration or whatever, they'll leave Trump alone. But what about all these states, especially New York, wanting to go after him on the state level?
There's a good chance that that's going to happen. And okay, here's another one. You could have Trump on January 20th at 9 a.m. sign all these pardons. To do, and again, if they're thinking about this, if this is the conversation, I guarantee you, because they war game it out, and it's like you could write all these pardons. You could basically Comey and Brennan and Hillary and even Obama and be like, those sons of bitches. They did it. We know they did it. Everybody knows they did it. There's never going to be a trial. They're never going to be held accountable. Give them a pardon because it'll do a pardon for what? It'll set it in record. Well, Joe Biden comes in office January 20th at, let's say he walks down Constitution Avenue, and let's say they go to the parties around Washington. They usually make the circuits. I don't know. Let's say Joe Biden, I don't know. He walks into the Oval Office as president at 9 o'clock at night. Because he's still, again, the man's 70, I don't know what, 74, 76, 78 years old. And he's like, pardon for Donald Trump. Pardon for, whatever. Pardon. We can play this game too. And maybe he gives a pardon for, for all of this stuff. Like, I don't know how that would apply to states. I mean, I don't know if that would keep the states from doing things, but there could be an argument made, even outside of payback against Donald Trump for playing politics with the pardons.
Well, let me.
But there could be an argument made. Joe Biden, they may be like, look, dude, give Trump a pardon because you're going to be out of office in 4 years. And if you don't give him a pardon and make people leave him alone, or maybe if they start going after Trump and trying to destroy him or put him in jail, issue a pardon because maybe he becomes Gerald Ford is like, we just need to move on because here's the thing. Every sitting president understands there's going to come a day when he or she are not president. They are now former presidents. And, you need to be set, someday you're going to be on the other side of this. And, it would be good that someone will leave you alone.
Well, let me ask you this. If Donald Trump pardons, say,
there's a constitutional argument to be made that Donald Trump could pardon himself. No one's tested that. That has not been tested by the Supreme Court. That the belief is that could exist, especially for things committed while he's in office.
Well, okay. So, say Donald Trump pardons himself. He issues himself a presidential pardon. Or maybe we won't use Donald Trump. Say he issues Hillary a presidential pardon.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden is the incoming president. Does he have the power to reverse a previous president's presidential pardon?
I don't believe so.
Or would that almost be kind of like stepping in the double jeopardy bounds?
Not double jeopardy, but you'd be stepping into, the process that would immediately go up to the Supreme Court because it is understood within the executive. The reason pardons and commutations and stuff like this exists is because the founding fathers understood that large organizations make mistakes. There's bureaucracies, just things go wrong. Part of the executive branch is that this person, whether you're the governor of Ohio or the president of the United States, that you are selected by a plurality of the voters, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, to run the government. And it's another way as a voter, you can talk to your congressman or your senators or your elected officials in the legislature. But if something gets retarded stupid, like there's always retarded stupid stuff that happens just because the legislature wrote a law, the executive is interpreting it this way, and you get some retarded thing that happens because I'm a bureaucrat and this is what we're going to do, and I don't write the laws, I just enforce them. And it becomes some political embarrassment for an administration or the country, and the country is howling What do you mean like this, I don't know, like this war hero got screwed over because of whatever. Like, they give this mechanism of pardons to the executive to basically, if this gets so retarded, I have the ability as the executive to fix it. And I'm solely responsible. And I will pay the political price for it. That's why that exists. So I don't think you could undo pardons. I think the Supreme Court would be like, nah, baba, nah. They'd be like, no fucking way. No way. Because it would turn, we're already borderline into a freaking banana republic here. Undoing pardons is death for this country.
I don't think it's, Freeze, I really don't think it's feasible, number one. But let's go 180 degrees the other way, away from the pardons. How many firings will Trump do?
Oh, everybody's getting fired anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, what about the defense secretary? I mean, he pretty much walked him down the stairs the other day.
Yeah. Well, there's two theories on that. Number one, the media likes to make it sound like CNN. Be like, oh my God, he needs to get his minions on the levers of power so they can release the tanks to take over the country. But there was an interesting story that came out, and we talked about this on the group chat. And I don't know if you saw it, Freeze, because you were working. But it came out that Thursday of last week, there was a meeting of senior government officials at the White House. And they were hypothetically, Donald Trump was like, should we bomb Iran? If I'm going to be out of office, we've had this Iranian nuclear program hanging over all of us like the sword of Damocles for 25 year. Okay, first it is, the Israelis hit Osiris or whatever in Iraq. Now, we're doing all these surreptitious attacks inside of Iran. If I'm going to be out of office, let's just bomb the fuckers. Give me the military options. And the argument was, number one, that conversation, the fact they had that conversation leaked, which I think is itself treason. I think that's high treason because somebody's leaking that because they have an agenda, because they don't want Trump to do certain things, which is fine for their own belief. But the thing is, by leaking it, it now tips the hand of the United States that Donald Trump really could do this and lets the Iranians now know that this was really possibly on the table. And the thing is, Trump may do it anyway because he might feel he has to for altruistic reasons. He may feel for the good of the world, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And it may cost Americans lives because somebody in Washington leaked this goddamn conversation. And the word is Esper was totally against it. And Trump's like, get the fuck out. At least give me options. We got to talk about it. It's not up to you to make the decision. This isn't, I need your authorization to release the nuclear weapons. This is a bombing strike on a country that's a terrorist nation that sponsors terrorism around the world. And Esper apparently and Trump clashed on this greatly, which is fine. But Esper, at least at the end of the day, is supposed to salute and do what he's told within certain parameters. And Trump felt like he lost confidence in Esper, and that's why he marched him out.
Yes,
because probably Esper wasn't going to be down for the bombing on Iran. But apparently, it also came out, they gave him the options. None of them looked really good. And Trump, at least it's reported on Thursday, was like, okay, you know what? We're not going to make a decision now. It doesn't look good, but let's keep working on it.
Oh, I still say, like I had told you on the group chat, nobody tells Trump what to do. I mean, he's very, I can't think of the word. What he wants to do, he's going to do it.
Okay, that's true. But it's also not true. That's just like when Obama was elected president. And like that first night, and I remember this person got on TV in the crowd, and they were jumping up and down and screaming, and they were so happy because Obama was president, and they were like, I don't have to worry about paying for my house anymore. And I think maybe they might even said something like, I think I can get a new kitchen. And it's like, no, Donald Trump can't do anything he wants to do, and no, Donald Trump does by circumstances, presidents are limited. They can't do look, if Donald Trump could do everything he wanted to do, he would have won re-election.
He cannot order the bombers.
He can.
That's my point.
Okay,
I think because people bucked him on it, he's going to do it just to be obstinate.
Okay, all right, we got to have a talk. Donald Trump not ordering the bombers to go into Iran has nothing to do with whether he has the authority to do it, and if he gave the order that the military would do it, and the Secretary of Defense would do it. Here's the problem, Mr. President, President Danny. Okay, so we've got a strike package. Let me give it to you. We got a strike package. We're going to do this. We're going to fly the B-2 bombers out of Whitman Air Force Base. We're going to slowly move. Maybe some of them will move over into Guam and the Anderson Air Force Base in Guam. And maybe some can come in from Europe and some can come in from the East. And we can hit targets in Iran, within, say, 30 hours. And we can have this many bombers do it. And we can also have some ships that are in the region. We have some submarines that are within striking distance. They can launch cruise missiles. We also have a couple of, we have some missile frigates and missile destroyers, maybe even a cruiser. They can launch some missiles. Mr. President Danny, we've activated some Air Force search and rescue people, and we're going to move them forward into some places in Bahrain or into Kuwait in case they have to go in and rescue down pilots. What do you mean down pilots? The president asked. Well, Mr. President, the B-2 is pretty old. It's been around a long time, and it's not as effective as everybody says. And also, the Iranians probably are expecting this move, and maybe they have the S-1000 missile system. What if they shoot down a B-2 bomber? Well, Mr. President, we're probably going to lose at least 2 bombers. We're going to lose a bomber? Well, we might lose 2 of them. Oh, my God, I'll be the first president that lost a B-2 bomber in combat. Oh, Mr. President, also be advised, if a B-2 bomber is shot down in Iran, China will have it within a week. What do you do, President Danny?
Where's the red button? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see my point?
Yeah, I do. Well, you asked me, so yes. I figured I'd throw a Dr. Spock quote in for you.
I mean, look,
Dr. Spock was a baby doctor, dude.
He doesn't know what that is. Dr. Spock was a baby doctor.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Freeze,
I mean...
Come on, you should know better.
Well, I mean, I know what reference you were making. I'm just saying, Dr. Spock wrote books.
Freeze is living in the real world, and Danny's living in Hollywood. Look, look. This is an opportunity to say we have to admit something here. Donald Trump. Look, okay. First of all, did they steal the election from Donald Trump? I mean, I have not seen evidence they stole the election, but all these stories and these weird things, emotionally, it's like I think there's a decent chance that maybe they did steal the election.
Well.
Hold on. Danny, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. So go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to get yelled at. I had to cough, so I muted my microphone.
Oh, that's good. I just saw your thing die. So here's the thing. But whether they stole it or not, because I made a comment about Trump not winning re-election. Look, I think there's a good chance. If Donald Trump is never elected president again, I think he's going to end up on Mount Rushmore. Donald Trump has been an extremely good president. His dealings with China, dealings with the Middle East, dealings with NATO, dealings with the economy. Everybody's been acting hyperbolic about Donald Trump becoming president, and everybody's been hyperventilating on both sides because of all this stuff. But Donald Trump, if his history is coming to an end January 20th, if you look at his record, because it's now set in stone, I think history is going to judge Donald Trump very, very, very well. He's been a very good president. He's been a very thoughtful president. He's been a very judicious president with his actions, not with his Twitter account.
I actually agree with you.
I fully agree too. But what scares me is if you look at or watch any news from local to national or whatever, they're treating Biden with kid gloves. Like, oh, what's your favorite ice cream? Where with Trump, they would have, asked him for a war and peace answer. And I think the discrepancies from Trump to Biden and the way that their approach is just sickening. And I still say this, but there's 73 million people in America that will not accept Biden and Harris.
Well, those 73 million people have no choice but to accept him. They may not like him, but I mean, Biden and Harris are going to be the next in line.
Right, on paper, but within the people's feelings, I don't think they'll ever accept it.
Well, maybe not, but at the end of the day, they have no choice. I mean, you can run around going, Biden's not my president. But that's kind of a sophomoric view to take on things.
All we heard for 4 years was Bush is not my president.
Yeah.
Then for 4 more years, it was like, well, he's still not my president. And then
Right.
we've heard Trump. Trump is not my president. I mean,
Well, the reason I say that because if you read what Sanders said yesterday, a couple other Democrats have put into print, is that they're vindictive. They're vindictive. And that's why I think that it's going to be more long term than just saying things, or more involved than just saying things. I'm sorry to say.
Well, what's going to be real interesting is, first off, are we going to keep the Senate? If we keep the Senate, I'll feel a lot more comfortable about Biden and Harris in the Oval Office. But what you have to look at is, in 2 years, are the Democrats going to keep the House?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either. They lost a big chunk of the House this time around. They still kept control.
what's the count up to now?
Oh, hell, I just seen that yesterday. I think she has a plurality of 7 or 8 seats, maybe.
So they've lost. How many have they lost now?
They
12?
lost, I think, at least 10.
And
Yeah,
they were predicted to be plus 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you notice that most of those were women that won?
You mean for the GOP? Yeah, the
on the
GOP.
Republican side?
The GOP has. The Democrats have a problem with that, and we're not going. But the Democrats realize that there's a lot of minority voters and minority candidates in the Republican Party. There's a lot of female voters in the Republican Party. There's a lot of gay voters in the Republican Party, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that basically buy into the idea of America. They buy into the idea of being of limited government and self-sufficiency and self-reliance, and also not being subjected to the whims and terror of a bureaucrat. And that is not a Democrat or Republican issue. That is a freedom issue. And the reason the Democrats are so big on bringing illegals into this country is they understand that they are losing a lot of people. If you have multi-generations of, if you want to call them, traditional Democratic voters, like whatever you want to define that being, whether it's, a certain group. I'm going to speak obliquely just because I want certain groups that are, maybe are historically not as successful as other groups, or certain groups that are maybe discriminated against as other groups. What happens is, as these groups age up, they become more conservative, and as they have children and they educate their children, and those children, they start businesses, and they build wealth, and they build communities, and they become more affluent. And so those traditional Democratic bases are now becoming more. They're demographically moving themselves out of dependency on the Democratic Party, and the Democrats know they have to bring in. I mean, it's very similar to the slave system if you think about it, pre-1860. The Democrats need broke, uneducated, dependent people to stay in power.
Yes, very good point. Very good point. But you know what we haven't done today? We haven't spoken one word on guns.
I got a whole pile of it.
Let's go.
Freeze and I have been discussing and looking for a 5-inch 10mm 1911. I have this theory, this thing I do because it's more a reflection of my personality. I'm a systems guy, so like when I was running a VP9, I wanted a VP40. I even wanted a VP45 because I like to have different calibers of the same gun. If I'm going to be back into the 1911 game, if modern 1911s are super reliable as I'm now seeing they are, I'm interested in getting a 10mm 1911. I'm interested in getting a 40 caliber 1911. Yes, really, because you can still get 40 if you need it. I'm interested maybe in getting a 38 Super. Well, one of the problems I've noticed is a lot of these 10mm 1911 guns are long slide guns. They're like hunter guns, and I would want one that's 5 inches that's kind of a GI. And Springfield has now come out. They've announced their new Ronin line, a 10mm, is now out or imminent coming out. I thought you'd find it interesting, Freeze.
Yeah, I do. Because you're right. Most of your 10mm 1911s are long slides because a lot of states have a minimum barrel length. And the 10mm is an excellent round to hunt with. And if you have a state that, says you have to have a barrel over 5 inches or 6 inches, that's where the long slide comes in.
Yeah. Have you guys heard the rumors that the current ATF administration has been reaching out to the incoming Biden administration on wanting to do stuff on the NFA?
No, I've not heard anything.
Why would they reach out? They go ahead and do it at their will, it seems, anyway.
Well, there's the ATF has been look, everyone has seen this coming for a while. The ATF does not like pistol braces. They're going after the pistol braces because this pistol braces basically subvert the SBR system, short barrel rifle system. Rifles less than 16 inches. Shotguns, I believe it's less than 18 inches. And you have to have a special $200 tax stamp for short barrel rifle or short barrel shotgun. And there's another category as well. So what's been happening is a lot of people have been getting AR pistols, and they're a pistol, but it's an AR with like a 10-inch or 8-inch barrel, and it's literally manufactured as a pistol. And then you just stick a brace on the back of it. It's not a stock, so now it's a pistol. You don't need NFA paperwork. You don't have to pay the tax stamp. You also can travel with it more readily because it's just a regular pistol. And because it's a regular pistol, in many cases, you can conceal it and possess it on your person on your concealed handgun permit. Because most people, if you have a gun permit, you probably don't have a concealed weapons permit. You probably have a concealed handgun permit. And an AR pistol is, by definition, a handgun. Well, apparently the latest from the ATF is, they're going after the braces, but basically people are not using them as braces. But the real big one is the ATF, was it in 68 Freeze when they did you can't import guns, certain small guns, because they were banned from importation because they were not considered, quote, sporting because they're so small. They're Saturday night specials. That's where that phrase comes from. And I remember there's a Glock pistol that was in .380 that was available only to law enforcement in the U.S. because the size of it and the caliber was so small it couldn't be imported into this country under the Saturday night special clauses of the importation rules for 68.
Yeah.
Well, apparently,
what were those 32s and 25s, something like that?
I honestly don't even. I haven't looked it up to give the specifics. It's a lot of you'll notice a lot of pocket rocket guns that you see in this country are actually made in this country. They're not imported.
Yeah, because they had the old ROMs and basically the Raven. Everyone's familiar with the Raven. Okay, prior to 68, there were a lot of foreign countries that produced basically the same gun, but when they stopped importing them from outside the U.S., then U.S. companies started manufacturing them.
and also historically in Europe, I mean, this is a difference between American culture and European culture, where a lot of gun companies that we think of today either had their start or were based or where they did a lot of business. American culture, we like big motorcycles with big engines. We like big cars with big engines. We have big roads and long-ass streets and highway systems. In Europe, they like smaller cars because, like you can ride down a street that's 1,000 years old and like the buildings are so close together, you can't get a Ford F-150 through the damn alley.
Look, let me tell you something.
They like smaller cars. Hold on. They like smaller cars. They like smaller motorcycles and smaller displacements. And also in Europe, we were really big on big caliber guns. And in Europe, a lot of guns, if you could own pistols before they cracked down on personal ownership of a lot of guns were in these, we call them wimpy little bullshit calibers, like 32s and all this, these real
380
9mm Kurtz for 380,
yeah,
like
380.
all these little itty bitty guns and these little itty bitty gentlemen's guns, and
Look,
those guns were not importable.
If James Bond was an American in the CIA, he wouldn't have used a Walther. He'd have used a freaking Python.
Probably, yeah. We probably used a 2-inch Python. That's a good point. So, but it's interesting. The ATF now, the grumblings are they've got a new idea, and so what they're going to do is like, how can they get rid of pistols? They're just magically going to create this new category, and they're going to call it large frame pistols. And basically what they want to say is, if we deem a pistol as being a large frame pistol, basically it's not importable. Or if it is importable, if it's large frame pistol, if you want to put anything on it, you're going to have to make it an SBR. But they seem to want to get on the importation. But here's the thing. If the ATF is smart, these dudes are smart. If they ban the importation, like a lot of these guns do come in from overseas. A lot of these little mini AKs are actually made overseas. These little AK pistols, a lot of these, H&K's got them. I mean, there's a lot of companies. Beretta's got some with the ARX or AR100, whatever it's called. But here's the thing: if you stop the importation of a bunch of these guns, because they're large frame pistols and we don't believe that's sporting either, whatever their justification is. There's a ton of them in the U.S. market, but instantly those guns become more valuable. People will start buying them and holding on to them, and they will suck them all up and they'll pull them out of the open markets. And they'll become collectibles and you won't see them as much.
Yeah.
And it's a way to really tamp down. Then they'll hit it on the other end, and they'll ban braces.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like it's a big fight coming. It's a big fight over that's coming. Like they're magically now going to say, and it's going to be interesting to go to court. Well, Your Honor, the ATF says small frame guns are not importable, and Your Honor, the ATF or small frame pistols, and Your Honor, the ATF says large frame pistols, this new category, are not permissible. So large frame and small frame. And how do you define that? And what does that mean? And like, you could have a court go, you can't ban it all. Or, does it mean now there's standard frame or there's legal frame? This is one of those things that's going to be defined probably from the bench. If this goes to a judge where they have to make a decision on it, this is going to magically be found.
That's what I was wondering. It'll go all the way up the court system, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah. Well, luckily we do have the Supreme Court, but but here's the thing. This is where the the originalists and they're not necessarily, it's not just the Constitution you have to deal with. It's the legislature and it's the law. You have to interpret the law as it was written. And Congress was very specific in the 1968 Gun Control Act when they created the modern FFL system in this country, which is what basically it did. it says in the law that the ATF has the right to make changes or deem things or interpret things to make this work because Congress defers to their judgment because they're the experts. And that's in the law. That's in the act. And the only way you can get around that is if you try to supersede it and say it's unconstitutional because of the Second Amendment. But I don't think I would have a hard time believing you're going to get 5 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court that are going to try to strike down the 1968 Gun Control Act.
Oh, no, I don't think they're going to strike down the 68 Gun Control Act. I don't see it happening. Mm-hmm. I just don't.
Maybe not the whole act in full, but part of it.
They could just strike down this interpretation.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And that, we'll have to see. Hopefully, I think AR pistols are in big ass trouble because look, Biden wants a gun win. Of course he does. He's an old man. He does have a history of wanting to go after the guns, and he's not going to get it legislatively. But the 1968 Gun Control Act and executive orders on importation, on bringing stuff into this country, sits right in his wheelhouse. And I think if you own an AR pistol, I think you better watch the news because you're going to end up having to do something with it. Now, you probably get to keep it, but something's going to change.
But remember, at one time, didn't Biden say he wants Beto O'Rourke as his gun czar?
Oh, I mean, Biden actually encouraged Obama to ban ARs through executive order, which is dumb. I mean, you can't do that. It's like, that's right up there with, someone telling President Donald Trump that he wants to ban NBC through executive order. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Do you look for him to go after the double stack versus single stack?
They always do capacity stuff. The problem with capacity, number one, a lot of the stuff is made in the United States magazines. We're the number one magazine manufacturer in the world here. Because after the 1994 assault weapons ban that expired in 2004, and let me remind the listener at home, okay, George W. Bush told because the assault weapons ban had a sunset clause in it. That's the only way they could get the Republicans to sign it because they were under a lot of pressure in 1994 to, quote, do something about the guns, just like they were supposed to do something about the crime. And a lot of Republicans didn't want to sign this, but they said, okay, just give it a chance. We'll put a sunset clause in it. And after 10 years, it expires. And the only way that it can continue is if it's renewed. And all that did is that allowed Republican politicians to sign it and kick the issue down the road 10 years to either when the politics would change or they no longer had to deal with it, just like the debt, and it was somebody else's problem. And George W. Bush told Congress, he said, when the assault weapons ban was about to pass, he said, if you can renew the assault weapons ban and get it out of Congress and put it on my desk, I will sign it. There's your Republican. So, it's like, this whole idea that these Republicans are going to save you on this stuff is horseshit. That's why Donald Trump's president, because they're all full of shit. Just like the governor of Ohio. He's a Republican, but his daughter secretly runs an anti-gun political action committee out of her house in Greene County, Ohio, and he thought he was going to get away with that.
Well, not so secretly runs an anti-gun action committee out of her house.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the best part is she probably draws a salary off of it.
Oh, I'm sure she does.
Yeah, it's like this guy's a Republican governor.
Yeah.
That's why in Ohio, the phenomena that got you Donald Trump, the phenomena of people just being sick and tired of these two-faced Republicans being full of shit, Kasich, DeWine, Bob Taft. Here's the thing. In Ohio, we had the fight. It was literally like storming the frickin' castle with torches to get CCW to pass in this state, and it was fighting against Republican governors. It was out of goddamn control.
Yeah.
I mean, Republican governors fought that for 10 years in this state.
I mean, it's kind of a miracle we even got it.
It's a miracle. I think, did it actually pass when a Democratic governor actually signed it, Freeze?
Yes. That was, what was the guy's name? It was after Taft.
Sturwald, Sturdemeyer?
No.
Is he the guy that's the psychology guy from the prisons? I can't remember his name.
God,
no one cares at home.
Yeah, the name's right on the top of my tongue, but yeah, it was actually a Democratic governor that signed it in, I believe.
Because basically, I think, I mean, like the House, I mean, like it was to the point that they were vetoing and like overriding, and like they had to shove it down everybody's throat here. Like it was in like there was even in Ohio. Like you had, well, you know, like this is my favorite. The GOP guys do this, like Kasich and DeWine. Well, you know, I'm speaking to the Police Chiefs Association, and they're worried about, they're worried about traffic stops. So I'm not going to sign it because law enforcement does not approve this. Law enforcement is not comfortable with it, and I'm pro law enforcement.
Yeah, that's
and it's
their go-to.
like the Police Chiefs Association is a political organization. And it's just like, it says, these bozos, they don't care about you. They don't care about your rights. All they are Democrat light. And that's what and to get back to politics and like, you know, 72 million or 100 people voted for Donald Trump. We're in for some bad times because I don't know if they stole the election. Nobody really knows, but the stories that we're hearing are crazy, but nobody seems to be intellectually curious enough, including Fox News, to run any of these stories down. And so if Joe Biden becomes president and starts doing all this crazy shit through executive action, and you've got 72 million people who cannot be dissuaded of the possibility that maybe Joe Biden actually stole the election, that's the recipe for political violence and disaster in this country. You cannot... For the good of the country, we have to figure out what happened. Because if you don't, one side or the other, it's just going to blow up. Here's the thing. I said this before, okay? If the courts rule, if they discover that if they figure out like, oh, you know, we're not certifying this state because this was whatever, and the Supreme Court says you don't need 270 to win, you need whatever because these states obviously can't hold an election because they're clown shows. And if you add up the votes, it turns out Donald Trump is president. That's a disaster too, because the other half of the goddamn country that actually has a functioning militia right now called Antifa is going to tear half this country apart. This, you know, and Fox News and ABC and NBC and CBS and CNN and the AP News Service and PBS, none of these people want to cover any of this. They don't want to go anywhere near this. They just want to pretend that when Donald Trump, Orange Man Bad, is out of office, that everything's going to go back to normal, like John Kasich gets to figure out like how people are going to react. Like we are in complete crazy town politically in this country right now.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's basically even divided, and no matter if the courts rule for, I agree, if the courts rule for Trump, one side's going to be pissed. If they rule for Biden or nothing happens, the other side's going to be pissed.
If one side, if half the country thinks Biden stole the election, that's not good for the country. If the other half of the country thinks the Supreme Court stole the election from them and made Trump president, that's not good for the country either. And to get this back to guns, just so we can talk about the subject, here's how crazy this is. Clint Smith and Heidi Smith, they run a very well-known training facility in Oregon called Thunder Ranch. They used to be in Texas, and they moved out. They bought about 900 acres in Oregon. And Oregon has been, you know, Portland has been nuts. Portland is like, they just, I think, didn't Oregon just now make it legal? You can have coke, like all the hard drugs, like it's legal to have it in Oregon, right?
I don't know.
I think you can have cocaine
know.
and crack and heroin now. It's legal to have it. I think it's in Oregon, not Washington State. It's in Oregon. Well, here's the thing. Because it's like, well, so-and-so, like California can break up into 3 states and, or New York can break up, but here's the problem. Everybody has to vote on this, including all of the House and the legislature. And it won't happen because somebody's going to get more seats or get more senatorial seats, right? Like you're not going to give let 2 more conservative states pop up because you're now going to have 4 more Republicans in the Senate. And so that'll never pass because we have the filibuster and you have to have a 60 plus votes and, you have to have other states ratify. You have to have 2/3 on everything. So the new theory is Thunder Ranch will now be moving to Oregon. And you're like, how does be moving to Utah? Or no, I'm sorry, Idaho. How does a 900-acre training facility in southern Oregon move to Idaho? Simple. They're not going to, there is a movement now that these people are so pissed off in Oregon about the craziness of these cities trying to destroy their lives that they basically want to secede from basically it's like 3/4 of the state will secede and join Idaho. And so the Idaho line will go west. It'll go all the way west until it hits outside of Portland and some of those crazy places. And then the line will go down and Idaho will actually have a coast on the Pacific Ocean.
Well, it doesn't change any congressional numbers, but
it will change congressional numbers in the House.
In the House,
but it's a lot easier. It is a lot easier to join a state and secede into another state than it is to create a new territory.
Yeah,
and that's assuming that the people in Idaho want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Wow. Because there's been grumblings in Virginia of counties on the border with West Virginia. They want to secede and join West Virginia, and there is a definite precedent for that. That's how West Virginia was created.
Well, speaking of West Virginia, why did Manchin come out 2 days after the election and say he doesn't support any of the Democrat lunacy?
Because Joe Manchin's not a communist, first of all. Joe Manchin's a dinosaur. He's a political dinosaur. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
Danny?
Yes,
you do?
I do. Yes, I do.
He is a Democrat from a different age. Joe Manchin, for all practical purposes, Joe Manchin is really not pro-gun. Joe Manchin he's a Democrat from 1975, which is basically a Republican today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and he also votes his constituency because
Joe Manchin is Joe. Okay, I'm basically from West Virginia, so West Virginia is a Democrat state. Now you have a lot of people that have voted Republican in West Virginia, but they're lifelong Democrats. My family was lifelong Democrats. Senator John Kennedy, Senator John F. Kennedy, when he was running for president, visited one of my family properties when he swung through West Virginia, because it's a Democratic stronghold. It's a Democratic state. And you got all these Democrats that are in West Virginia that in many ways, it's a very poor state. It's extremely poor state. There's just a lot of problems in West Virginia. And so they vote Democrat. But a lot of them, the Democrats have gone so crazy, they vote for Trump now. And the Republican Party is growing in West Virginia. But it's still a Democratic state. And Joe Manchin, they tried to get him to join the Republican Party. But here's the thing. Joe Manchin's been the governor of West Virginia. He's the senator from West Virginia. There's even talk to Joe Manchin, now that he gets more power, if he's going to be one of the two, if the Senate's going to be super close by a couple votes, he now is the new John McCain. Joe Manchin's sitting in the catbird seat, because if it's that tight, and let's say they flip some seats one way or the other, and on particular issues, it's like, oh, these Republicans, they can't count on them to vote conservative. They're gonna on this particular bill, they're gonna vote with the liberals. Joe Manchin's like, what are you gonna give me, bitch? Joe Manchin can fuck everything up. He can basically be the power player. And he was born and bred and trained in this school by John McCain. That's what John McCain did. Joe Manchin's probably one of the biggest political winners of the 2020 season and the Senate because of everything that's been going on. And you also got to realize Joe Manchin's never going to turn into a Republican because his entire base is Democrat. His entire mechanism is Democrat. His staff is Democrat. Yeah, in West Virginia, his staff, they're not communists. There's some. But, like if he were to switch to Republican, like his entire infrastructure for living and functioning and running in elections statewide and his entire state would collapse, and he would have to depend on the Republican Party that has nobody.
Yeah, there's no reason why Manchin should change parties.
Yeah, there's no reason to him within his own state. The current governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, Big Jim, he's a coal guy and he owns a bunch of stuff, but he was a Democrat. But then he switched. He became a Republican. I think he became a Republican. He switched parties within the past probably 6 years, and his justification is, I'm a Republican, but I'm a West Virginian, and me, I'm for you, and you know what I'm about. I ain't like these fucking people. I'm not a communist, and I'm not a crazy person. I'm Big Jim. Vote for me. And West Virginia is 30 years behind everybody else in the Democratic Party.
Well, and that's not a bad thing because the Democratic Party's a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised when Manchin came out and he said he is totally against the Green New Deal because of
course he is. He's from a coal state.
Right. He said, I'm totally against the AOC and the squad type stuff. I'm against voting down the filibuster. I was really surprised that he came out with all that.
Sure he did.
Yeah, he also said
because he's got nothing to lose politically because his base at home supports that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Let me talk about Joe Manchin. Just say this about Joe Manchin. Donald Trump and the National Republican Party tried very hard to knock Joe Manchin out. Joe Manchin just won re-election. Don Trump Jr. campaign, I can't remember who was running against him. There was one crazy coal guy. But the Republican Party could not take Joe Manchin out. They could not get the Trump voter in West Virginia, who may even now call themselves a Republican, to vote against Joe Manchin because they know Joe. They've known him their whole lives. This is just like Freeze knowing Steve Shabbat, because in his neighborhood, everybody knows Steve Shabbat. They know the guy. They believe in the guy. They have a personal relationship with the guy. Joe Manchin is unbeatable in West Virginia. He's so much political power within West Virginia, especially with his re-election. Democrats have been getting wiped out left and right, except for Joe Biden, which makes no sense. Not Joe Manchin.
Yeah. Well,
but the media won't say that. MSNBC won't say that because he's not a darling to them. Like if any Democratic senator was able to do the things he's done the past 4 years in and around Washington, in and around his home state, he would be the leader of the Democratic Party. But because he comes from a coal state and he doesn't want to completely ban guns, he will take your AR-15, by the way. They don't like him. And he's not a communist. But he's extremely powerful because nobody can touch him. And he's so powerful that when he's done in the Senate, he might go home and run for governor again and win. He's got options. And Danny, let me refresh your memory on who Joe Manchin is. You've seen him before. There was a political ad that was run many years ago. And you saw it. It made national news. It was during the Obama administration. And there was a guy. He was running for the U.S. Senate. And he's not, and he took a printout of Obamacare, and he strapped it to a tree, and he looked at the camera and had his bolt action rifle, and he said something to the effect of, "I don't believe in Obamacare, and I believe in your right to own a gun." And he cycled the action on his bolt action rifle, and he shot a bullet right into that taped up copy of Obamacare to the tree.
I remember that.
That's Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin thinks you should have the right to own a gun to hunt deer. He doesn't think you should have an AR-15. He ain't your buddy.
No. I agree. All I know is January 5th is the Georgia runoff. That is going to be so well watched. But if they don't somehow examine these mail-in voters, the mail-in versus a signature match, or this or that, it's going to be a shit show.
Oh, yeah. Well, tell you what, let's do, because we kind of got off on tangent, let me do a couple more gun things, and then we'll do the crime, because we haven't done a crime police blotter in a while. So, Freeze. SAAMI has 3 new calibers out, according to their SAAMI standards. Small Arms Ammunition and Manufacturers. Small Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute, SAAMI Specs. They've got 6.8 Western, 277 Fury for the new SIG fancy caliber. I think they want to run for the military. That is that's been approved. And then Weatherby has something called 6.5 Weatherby rebated rim.
That's interesting.
I don't know what that is. I suspect 6.8 Western is probably a suppressor friendly round for lever guns. I don't know that to be true. I'm just looking at it trying to figure out what it's for. Also, it now appears that the Army, or the SOCOM, United States Special Operations Command, has decided to pick the Barrett MRAD as a sniper rifle in their system. And they're calling it the Mark 22. It's an 8 caliber switch barrel system. I don't think they're going to use all 8 calibers, but one of the calibers it does run is 338 Norma. And we had heard rumors years ago that when they were running tests for sniper rifles, because I knew a guy that was involved in the test, and they brought some stuff there, and one of the things that they were like, yeah, it's got to be 338, and he came back from the test and he was like, it looks like they're liking 338 Norma, and I'm like, 338 what? What the hell is that? He was like, yeah, we don't know either. It looks like that this because apparently 338 Norma outclasses 338 Lapua, so well, yeah, but the MRAD, it's based in Tennessee. The MRAD, it's the same guy that or the same company that made the M82 50 caliber gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The guy's son made the MRAD.
Cool.
It looks like a heavy gun, but
well, they're all heavy guns.
Oh yeah,
especially
this. You know what this gun looks like? This gun for you, because you're not really a military guy. This gun to your eye will look a lot like the ballista that you looked at when you were talking to the guy from FN.
The ultimate behemoth.
Yeah. That's a crazy heavy gun.
That ballista was stupid.
Yeah, so.
Of course, the guy I was talking to wasn't pleased with me, but
yeah, because he runs their. He's the captain of where he was. Oh man, I know. David Voss.
Yeah, Voss.
I can't remember his first name. Yeah, you were talking to Voss, and you were just like, yeah. It was not. It was
Well, I mean, everyone's sitting there jacking the guy off on how awesome it is, and I'm just like, what?
Actually, the ballista isn't even actually made by FN. I mean, I'm sure it is now, but the ballista was actually made by, they bought the ballista. Like, they didn't make the ballista. They bought the ballista from a European rifle company called Unique Alpine, if I recall correctly, and they made the ballista. So FN bought that and turned it into one of their sniper rifles, and they've been trying. It's a switch caliber, but I guess the MRAD, for some reason, the MRAD from Barrett is the big one. So we've been going. I did not want to do a podcast this long. We've been going a long time, and I was committed to only doing an hour, but I do want to get the police blotter in. So
okay,
look, we've had a lot on the plate for the police blotter. Like there's There's a passenger in India that was caught with gold nuggets stuffed up their rectum because they were trying to bypass taxes. Little Wayne is getting charged by the feds for getting caught with a gold-plated handgun in his luggage. You know, there's the guy at Disney who was caught with a BB gun and a fake badge by Disney security, and he claimed to be a DEA agent. He's 18, and it's like he apparently through the Amazon. He claimed he got his training through the ATF Amazon online Amazon. It was like this guy's a nut job, you know. And then there's the guy that got mauled by a cougar after paying $150 for the quote full contact experience.
Nice,
but no. A blast from the past, someone you can always count on to really make the police crime blotter the gold standard that we hold it to. It has now come out. Mike Tyson used a prosthetic penis filled with baby urine to pass his dope tests.
What?
Oh my!
Tell me, yeah.
It gives new meaning to the word strap-on.
Okay, well, I just want to know where the hell he got baby urine. What, did he squeeze diaper juice?
I don't know. I wondered that too. He must have known a woman with a baby, and they must have had the baby peeing in a. I mean, if you think about it logically, and they weren't squeezing it out of diapers, it could
pee in
be
a bucket.
Pretty bad. But yeah. So apparently he had a prosthetic penis filled with baby urine. That's how he passed his dope screens.
Did the guy at Disney World show up in a '94 Crown Vic?
I was hoping, but I looked, and as far as I can tell, they have not been able to tie a Crown Vic to his DMV records. But dude, I guarantee you, if you look at his browser history, he's been shopping for Crown Vics on eBay, guaranteed. 100%.
With the spotlight.
With the V8 Interceptor package, guaranteed.
Look, in all fairness, I mean, who doesn't want a Crown Vic?
You can get it for nothing now.
Yeah, as long as it's the 4.6 and not the 5.4.
Hey, we've been throwing movie references around. It's like, this has cop tires. It has a cop lighter. It's got
cop tires, cop brakes, cop transmission, cop engine, cop suspension, cop whatever.
Yeah,
and baby moon hubcaps.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this wraps up episode 193 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any stories or pictures or links of anything we discussed, you can go to our website, john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
See ya.